Hello there, and welcome to day 128 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today, I am finally getting to tick off a film that has been on my docket for a long time now. Probably since it came out, and I, for whatever reason, was unable to see it, and probably every month from then on have said I must watch Molly's Game. Of course, this is written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. And as I mentioned in my Trial of the Chicago 7 video, I just think there is something about Aaron Sorkin's style of writing and directing that makes him stand out as a truly great filmmaker of his time. As history will attest to him being a someone who understands the mechanics of both writing and presenting characters and scenarios in a way that is rich, complex, layered, but also simple. Very simple. You going away from this, I really felt this sense of. I mean, I'm not really a poker player. I've played some hands with some friends at university probably 2 or 3 times in my life. And yet, going into this, at no point was I struggling to follow. It was laid out in a clear and precise way. And yet, coming out of it, I don't feel like I'm any... my knowledge of poker is any richer than it was going in. But that's the beauty of his writing. Because, again, he just makes you feel like you understand... And you do comprehend as much as you need to get from character to scenario, to see how the whole thing fits together, but only as much as you need. And it's the kind of film that just throws you in. I mean, Molly's dialogue, Molly Bloom, played by Jessica Chastain, she jumps in with narration, and you see her as a teenager an Olympic athlete, and she immediately jumps in with narration about the importance of the sport and how it ties into the importance of her poker and how everything will fit together. And it never lets up from point one. So you then jump to present day when, of course, you're learning about her being arrested by the FBI and under charges of holding illegal poker games. And then it jumps back to her starting, after her accident and her starting her career. And then you jump further back to the fact that she had quickly onset scoliosis as a child, and yet then became a skier. And it's all building such a concrete picture of a character. And I genuinely think Aaron Sorkin is so great at this sort of thing, where he, Steve Jobs is a film that I, to this day, defend, in spite of the fact that people don't tend to like it as one of his films. And yet I defend it, saying that it really does give you a well-structured presentation of a man at different stages of his life, and how and how he evolved as a person over a set period of time. And Molly's Game does exactly the same thing. We get this incredibly well played out story of how someone goes from an ambitious young woman who decides to take a gap before going to law school to becoming a kingpin of the gambling world, a global phenomenon in terms of underground gambling, and then becomes this shattered, fragmented person who doesn't know how to survive a series of events that she was both in control of and yet not in control of, and how she just simply is trying to not go to prison. And yet, even in the different stages, it shows that she is incredibly sharp. The dialogue is incredibly well put together. Every beat of the dialogue, every line is written with intent and balance, so it means it can be said at such speed and back and forth, and yet you're following, and yet you're being given tons of information. I mean, scenes between her and Idris Elba, who plays her lawyer, are just so quick and sharp and intelligent, and at no point does it ever try to dumb it down or slow down for you. It just goes, this is the way people talk. You might not catch it all, but you're gonna get used to it. And I don't know, I really appreciate that. I genuinely do, and it allows actors like Jessica Chastain, like Idris Elba, like Michael Cera. It really gives them the opportunity to be at their A game, to show that they're quick and sharp, and that they don't need to demonstrate the ability of their performance in anything other than their tongues, basically, in their faces and their tongues. And there are moments where characters are considering, particularly like when Idris Elba is deciding whether he wants to even represent Molly, and keeps saying he won't. He says he'll attend her hearing, but he won't represent her. And yet you see the cogs turning as he's assessing her, as he's assessing her situation, and it shows an understanding of people, of showing how people work, of micro emotions that is outstanding, is genuinely outstanding. The trouble I suppose I have in one respect is putting aside the filmmaking of it and putting aside the story, which is incredibly engaging from all that I've said. There is something deeper about sort of the culture, the world in which Molly Bloom exists and what she's a part of, where the film does its very best to try to picture her in no less than what she did, which is all she did was hold illegal gambling games, where they weren't illegal for most of her career doing it, and then she decided to start skimming off the top, making profit from these games, which legally you can't do. The only money that should be made is money via tips, and she did that for similar, and then slightly corrupted the games towards the end of her career. And so, frankly, she did very little wrong. There is laws that she broke, and she's not unjustly on trial. But the implication is that the courts and the FBI are so heavily weighing on her because they don't want her. They want the names and the information about all of the actors, all of the celebrities, all of the mobsters who played at her games as part of a bigger... She's simply a pawn in a bigger sting. And so the film tries to portray her as... as very sympathetic, as someone who is so sharp and intelligent and driven, and yet is pushed down by her father, by Player X, who we never learn who he is, although outside of the film it is very strongly alleged that is Tobey Maguire, by her former boss, by a misogynistic society that she feeds into, in terms of she sets up this gambling society, and yet and it's very male dominated, and yet she's also a victim of it, and she's constantly trying to fight this misogynistic system. And so it shows how intelligent and driven, and how she's struggled against like I say, a misogynistic system that's really trying to break her down, and then a government system that's trying to use her to simply get to people it actually cares about. And the problem I suppose I have is the fact that in its attempts to portray her as sympathetic, as someone who just did what she did, but doesn't deserve more than more justice against her than excessively so than what her crimes were. But in doing so, it then makes me incredibly hostile, because it desperately tries to portray her as so sympathetic and so undeserving, then it makes me look at it as a whole and I go, well, there is something wrong and corrupted here. And I look, and of course, you see, like I said, the illegal gambling. You see her develop drug addictions and alcoholism, and you see the people that she associates with, and you see how it slowly chips away at her as a person until she barely has anything other than this. And it makes me think about the fact that, like, the fact that we create this society, and it's all of us, whether over here in the UK or all Western society, but it's most exemplified in this sort of top level American capitalist vision, where even these richer than rich people, the top table people, still need this gambling lifestyle and this heavy rolling, and to find happiness in themselves. And it sort of shows how it's only part of stuff that they're into, that just keeps them satiated. And it's like, but these are the richest, most successful people. As I say, Player X it's shown that he, frankly, does this because he wants to break people. He wants to see that. And it makes you incredibly depressed, because it makes me think, particularly in the US, they create a society where, being wealthy, being financially successful, being the top of your industry is your goal. And yet, when you see characters like this, and their goal is achieved in that respect, it's not enough, and so therefore they need even higher highs. And that's quite depressing. And then, like I say, so going back to Molly, the fact that she is so brilliant, and yet this is all she has. And as I say, she feeds into this system, this whole terrible, just, I don't know, House of Usher, where it's incredibly depressing, and it on some level, and it does sort of make me go, well, I don't want to sympathise with her, because in spite of her best intentions, she fed into this, and she was someone who it demonstrably shows that she is brilliant, is genuinely brilliant, and a maverick, and yet this is what she is reduced to, and she can't even leave that. She's unable to just go, oh, I've made enough money, now I can leave. Because the whole narrative is about how she is addicted to she is addicted to gambling addiction, as in this drive, the thrill of setting up the games. She never plays, but the thrill of setting them up and having these people play is almost like the same kind of addiction that the gamblers themselves have. And I think that's really interesting, and like I say, Aaron Sorkin writes it in a way that makes me really go away and think about it, but like I say, it then makes me a little more reticent to sympathise with Molly. In the same way that I struggle to sympathise with Mark Zuckerberg in Social Network. In the same way that I struggle to sympathise with Steve Jobs in Steve Jobs. I mean, the only one that I say, Trial of Chicago 7, I left going, oh, none of them deserved the rhetoric that they were getting, the weight, and so that I definitely left thinking, yes, he's written characters who I genuinely sympathise with, who are doing something good and yet are being punished for it. Whereas a lot of the previous films tries to take characters who possibly are seen in a certain way and tries to recontextualise that, and I don't always think it works. In Molly's Game, I think it just about does, if I don't think about it too much. But that's, like I said, that's going deeper into the plot than I need to. In terms of the surface level enjoyment of the film, I genuinely think it's fantastic. And I do think Jessica Chastain is phenomenal as Molly, and I do think the character of Molly is so rich and compelling. It won a Best Adapted Screenplay, as it should. I'm slightly concerned that every time Aaron Sorkin does something, it should deserve an Academy Award, and I feel like eventually there should be. When will he have enough? But hey, as long as he keeps making great films, I'll keep watching them and deciding. And yeah, I'm really glad I've finally seen this. It it again demonstrates that I am a huge Aaron Sorkin fan in terms of his writing style, and I hope that his style influences many others. Maybe in terms of his directing is very good, and especially in this, is very stylized, and it has a certain tint to the color of it, and is edited in such a way that feeds into the text, that feeds into the performances. But the thing that again, Aaron Sorkin's writing is the thing that I hope that many American scriptwriters use as an influence, and that style, that consideration, at least in how to write characters, is sort of something that goes forward in terms of film writing. But yeah, a lot to chew on for this one for me. I think it was a genuinely great way to end my week. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and please comment on the video because it all helps me in the algorithm. I have over 125 videos, so please do check some of my back catalogue. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about movies and TV shows, and of course, links to the videos when they go up. Thank you for joining me. Take care.